I'm delighted to be in Oxford at the 2019 Oxford Real Farming Conference, and even more thrilled to be with Eliot Coleman, who is a pioneer of real farming beyond organics, I would say, and who personally had a deep influence on me and taught me how we can farm and grow food not only in the warmer months but also in my climate, particularly in the south of England, easily compared to you, all the way through the year, and keep our soils in good health, and that we can scale up into market gardening, but we can scale your techniques right down into small garden techniques as well. And so my first question is, can you tell us a little bit about the array of techniques that you've developed over the decades that you've been researching and pioneering this work?
Right. Well, we began, as everybody usually does, with composted manure because it was available. There was a horse farm near me that had a huge pile of it. And if you were to ask me what the one absolute best fertilizer for vegetable growing is, I would tell you it is horse manure from horses bedded on straw, composted. I don't really believe in magic, but there is something magic about that combination. Once we got the soil up to the point where it was running, and since we started with very acid soil, we had to put lime in, and then we put in the usual rock powders. We found that once you get the soil working, it is amazing if you keep up with the organic matter additions of compost. It gets better year after year, as if it's almost learning that, oh yeah, whatever I was before, in our case it was a spruce fir forest, this is now the new reality for all my microorganisms and all the little creatures that power it. And we've been farming the soil I'm on now for over 50 years, and yet it gets better every year. So that's the most encouraging part of it. We now on our market garden are running basically a sod-based rotation. So the land is in sod grazed by our laying hens, and then we cash in the fertility that we created there to get a year of vegetables off it, and then back into the sod with the laying hens, and it goes back and forth like that. And basically, this is a no input system. There's a little bit of cheating there because 75% of the feed we feed the laying hens comes out as manure. But we're not buying fertilizers. All of the things that people get into because they think organic gardening is using different fertilizers instead of chemicals, which may be true of organic gardening. But organic farming, once you have green manures, cover crops, crop rotation, the choice of mixing in livestock, you have a system that is going to maintain fertility as long as you manage it intelligently. And the best thing about it is that all of those techniques, green manures, cover crops, etc., these are management techniques. They come out of here, they come out of your head. You don't have to buy them. And they're the best way to keep the soil fertile and happy and not eroding and everything else.
And would you tell our audience a little bit about the ideas behind four-season harvest and the basic principles that you've discovered that,
right.
It's the holy grail really of temperate growing?
In the U.S., farming used to be all over, but basically the climate in California is such that California has almost taken over vegetable production in the U.S. And so there I was as a small grower in Maine on the opposite side of the continent from California. And I noticed that every year by October, I was turning over all my business to California because of our winter climate. And so I thought, well, I don't want to do that. So we started experimenting with cold frames and other simple things, and we got further into the fall, and we could start sooner in the spring. And then the real leap forward was when we put cold frames inside a simple plastic tunnel. And this really, all of a sudden, we could do anything as long as we stuck with the winter vegetables, the hardy vegetables like spinach or mash or scallions, ones that don't mind cold. And people always say, well, gee, if you put in a little heat, you could have tomatoes all winter. And I said, maybe I could, but they would taste like cardboard because there's something in addition to growing them, and it's called sunshine. There's not enough sunshine in the winter. So the crops that do well for us in the winter are the short day crops, and spinach is the perfect example. And these love growing in cool weather, taste better in cool weather, and have become the basis of our winter operation. The real winner in all of this is to take a small carrot, we grow one called mokum, and plant it where we live on the middle of August, which everybody thinks is so late. How can you plant a carrot in the middle of August? It turns out if carrots do most of their growing in cool weather, they are 10 times as sweet as a carrot that encounters hot weather. So you plant them in the middle of August and you let them grow on, and long on about the time the weather is about to get too cold for them to be safe out of doors, we slide a greenhouse over them. The home gardener could carry a cold frame and put them over it. That's how we started years ago. And then if you're on top of Mount Snowdon, you want to fill that cold frame with straw. If you don't have a fierce climate, the cold frame alone. But what we learned was if you leave carrots stored in the ground with their roots intact, they continue to get sweeter. And these are known in our local markets as candy carrots, and children ask their parents to go to the store and buy them. We are so popular with mom and dad because little Johnny will eat vegetables, because we figured out how to make them delicious. That there's a second thing to it. Before the carrots go in middle of August, in the middle of July, we've turned under a green manure of peas and oats, and we've learned that is just an ideal green manure prior to the carrots. So we're focusing everything on producing a carrot that has a flavor and a tenderness to it that people haven't encountered. The first time someone eats these, their eyes open and they go, oh my gosh, is that what a carrot is supposed to taste like? And that's what we're after.
And just briefly, what would be your advice to sort of the next generations coming into growing and trying to make their job of it, their career of it?
It's the most satisfying work I've ever done because I'm nurturing plants, young plants until they're of harvest size, and that is very satisfying. But also the result of this work is food to nourish human beings. And part of the whole idea behind organic growing was that if you grew the food correctly, it would be healthier for people. And nature is pretty consistent, because what you find out when you start on all this is if you prepare the soil correctly, the plant grows better. If you've done your job preparing the soil perfectly, the plant not only grows better, but there are no pest problems because the plant is healthy. And since nature is pretty consistent, maybe if the plant is healthier and human beings eat it, they will be healthier, and the whole thing goes on.
Well, Eliot, thanks so much for sparing us
You're welcome.
some time at such a busy conference.
A pleasure to talk to you.
Great pleasure to meet you at last.